Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pendragon Chromaggus guide for Blackwing Lair and Classic. So, let's get straight to it. The main tank pulls Chromaggus and he tanks him here. You see the difference in tile pattern. So tank him here while standing here, and he will never get in vision of the healers. And that's important because Chromaggus does several types of fire breaths or breaths in general. And if the healers stand over here, just like on Fireball, they should be able to see the tank and not get hit by the breaths. So range DPS, you stand over here, you DPS. If a breath comes, you jump to the left or walk to the left, you hide, don't get hit, and then you can go back to DPS the boss. As a melee, you can DPS from here, just before a breath, you can hide over here, and there will be 2 healers here as well to help you. The other mechanic on this fight is that there are several types of debuffs, all types of debuffs, so you probably want healers that can cover all debuffs here, like 2 of them, and here, and you need to dispel the raid on cooldown, get all those debuffs away, because if someone gets all the debuffs, they turn into an evil dragon and kill everyone, so you don't want that to happen. So dispels, very important. I'll show the dispels here. You have several types. The main thing, like this, the red disease is just some damage, just dispel it. The main ones are green, reduces healing, dispel it from the main tank ASAP. Blue reduces casting speed, but mainly drains mana, needs to be dispelled instantly. And this one, Broad Affliction Black, needs to be dispelled from the tank as well, because especially if he has a fire breath, he's gonna kill the tank instantly. So basically, main tank, always full dispel, because he's also most likely to die. For example, heal Chromaggus. And Blood Affliction Bronze cannot be dispelled. You need Hourglass Sand for it, which will be dropping from the trash before this boss, will be handed out accordingly by the officers. It's a 4-second stun. If that happens on you, it's random when the stun happens. You just debuff and you get a random stun, and you get stunned while breath goes off, you're gonna die. So if you have the debuff, you don't have sand, you want to move before the breath goes up a couple seconds, so that if you get stunned, you're already in your safe spot and don't get stunned in the breath, because you will just die. So be aware of your own positioning. Now, hide when the breath comes, very simple. That's for almost all of the breaths. The only breath that is difficult is Timelapse. I'll show you here. Timelapse, bronze. Stuns for 6 seconds everyone who's in vision. Reduces their maximum health, so that's also kind of annoying. And it reduces threat, so that when people are stunned, he goes for non-stunned characters first. So what that means is if your main tank's tanking him, and everyone's hiding, and the main tanks get stunned, he's gonna eat the DPS. So what you want to do, like the first time you pull Chromaggus, you don't know which breaths he has yet. It's random every week. He has 2 breaths, and that stays the same for your entire raid ID that week. So the first time you engage him, you need to find out if there's time lapse. So you start the fight, your DPS goes slow, you stay below the main tank, you stay below the off tank. First breath comes every 30 seconds. If it's time lapse, the off tank, like when the first breath comes, the off tank has to hide. The melee DPS, range DPS, hide. Main tank stays in. If it's timeless, main tanks get stunned, off tank gets aggro, he runs to the main tank spot, takes over tanking for a while, and then once the stun runs out, main tank tries to take back the aggro, and so forth. Then you can just do DPS as usual. Then the second breath will come, which will not be time-lapse, right? But then the third breath will be time-lapse, and the fifth breath will be time-lapse. When that happens, you know it's time-lapse, and you know that the breath does no damage, it just stuns. So what you do then, your DPS can just go ham. You don't have to care anymore about the off-tank threat. You can just go just below the main tank threat. And what you just have to do then, okay, we say it's time lapse, stay in. Then the melee DPS and the range DPS stay in vision. The off-tank hides, and then the off-tank should get aggro. He runs back here, positions the boss, stun runs out, main tank takes it over, and then you just proceed, right? So time-lapse is the only breath which has different mechanic for the entire raid. So let's hope you don't get it, but if you do, this is what you do. The other breaths are basically just damage. The fire one, if you don't dispel the fire disease, was just gonna destroy the tank. So dispel the tank. Just before breath, he needs to have zero debuffs, and preferably none at all. during the entire fight, of course. There's the corrosive. The green one reduces armor. A lot of damage on the main tank during the time, so overheal the main tank for the next 15 seconds. You should probably always overheal the main tank, but do it extra then, be aware. The blue one reduces attack speed on your main tank, so it will do less threat, so be careful with your damage. And the rest is just, do damage, stun shit. Like, just overheal the tank. He should be the only one taking damage during the entire fight, a part of, where is it? The Blood of Things Red, which deals like 50 fire damage per 3 seconds, which is nothing. Right. So there's very, very little amount of raid damage. It's mainly just um, uh, for the main tank. The final two mechanics that the boss have are free. Is first of all, he's vulnerable to certain types of magic, and that changes every time. In chat, you see something like the skin of Chromaggus flinches or whatever. That's when he changes. It's the job of the magic DPS to find out where what the magic vulnerability is, and then you call it out, and then you focus on that magic type. So if it's fire, you change to fire spells, etc. Because it will get like a huge boost in damage. Just make sure you don't over aggro during that time. The second bit is that he enrages. You need to trank shot him instantly when it happens, so hunters have a rotation for that. And finally, at 20% he enrages, and you cannot trank that, and it deals a lot of damage, so your main tank is probably gonna do shield wall, shield block, you probably shield your tank will cooldown. Like, he needs super healing, and you need to nuke down the boss super fast. Obviously, if you still get a breath during that time, that sucks. Like, a breath comes every 30 seconds, and after it's 20%, he should be dead within 30 seconds. It's execute range, etc. So what you want to do before you push him down to 20%, if he's like at 24%, and the breath is still coming, you say stop DPS, you let the breath go off, then in the meantime, one mage and a warlock and whatever should find out which kind of vulnerability he has, and when he has a good vulnerability, you push him over the 20% and you just nuke him down. And that's the end of the fight. So thanks for watching. It's a lot of mechanics, but if you just focus on mechanics for your role, it's not that difficult. Just listen to the callouts, call out the breaths, and react accordingly.